Hey, this is 5 notable agents on the new map, Corrode. We're going to start off with Cypher, and I think Cypher is probably one of the strongest agents on this map, because even though he will have some healthy competition with Voice, I think that he's by far and away the best agent on this map. Or not, maybe not by far and away, but he's pretty damn good on this map. I think your B site is generally quite good. It kind of coincides with what your teammates want to do as well, with playing like 3 towards A, because you don't want to lose A. You don't want to play retake on A, so you playing over towards B makes sense, and I feel like a Cypher is probably the best sentinel on B side. So you got all like these trips off this. You've got a trip here that you can do. There's a trip here you can do. There's plenty of trips mid site as well, so you can sit up here and spam through smoke in mid site. You have all these options. There's like this other thing as well you can do, where you can do like a Cypher cage like this, and you can sit in the corner. So you can start here and crouch into it and that kind of stuff, and then choose an opportune moment to go out. You have really good cam spots as well, so you can cam spot up here and see rotations. You can cam spot up here as well, just for being annoying, basically, for when they come out and that kind of stuff, very similar to other sites. And your cages aren't half bad either. You can have cages like this. You can put a cage ready for this. There's probably a one-way off of this as well, but I need to figure out how to place it. There might also be a one-way here that's figurable, but I think that this one is kind of bad because they can still kind of see this way. So it's not great. This one I need to figure something out if it is possible to kind of get a one-way here. But I think this one might be more doable. But we'll have to see. But I think that overall Cypher is pretty good on this map, even retake-wise as well. If you did like get a spam kill through here, you can do things like double cage like this and try and retake by doing this and this kind of stuff, very Omen-like, to be honest, and try and retake that way. So I think that overall this is very much a very good Cypher site. And A side isn't really too favourable for you on defense, but on attack, on post plant, it is so unbelievably broken for you, it's crazy. So I'm just going to quickly move on to attack, and like kind of the reason why I think Cypher is so notable on this map and this site is that you have something that not many agents have, and that is you can basically place a world ping physically like this, right? So you place that on the bomb, and then you've got a place to spam the bomb. Without actually having to ping or anything. So you can place it anywhere, and as long as Cypher will be able to shoot it with an Odin through this wall. So to me, it makes him very, very strong in that sense. Obviously, it's not like super important, but it can be very, very strong, and it can play into some strategies. So I think it is quite notable. Just in general as well, you can have your cam in like some very nice places as well on this site for the post plant too. So I think overall, even if you save a trip as well, like you can even stop people from like running up to you if you like put a trip in like this location, right? Stops people from running up to you and taking a fight on you over here, right? Because they kind of have to go through this trip first, and you might be able to even kill them like through this corner if they prop the trip. So like, and even place a trip over here as well. You can maybe spam them through the boxes or something like that. You are very, very strong on this site in post plant, so it just makes sense for Cypher to be probably like the most notable agent on Corrode. So next is Sova, and I think Sova makes a lot of sense when you're defending with him on A, because a lot of the time you want to be kind of with the bulk of your team, and I feel like you're going to be playing 3, maybe 2, but mainly I would say 3 towards A. And he's just very good just to place like the most basic of like recons to like scam people when they're coming out and things, right? These are all very, very good scans for when people are coming out, for your teammates to get kills from short, or your teammates to get kills from like this corner or this corner. So, or through the wall, to be fair, or you through the wall if you want to have an Odin as well. Like, it just makes a lot of sense for Sova to be played on this site. And the drone obviously helps with that too, but you can also kind of play for post plant on B, because obviously you're going to be playing a strong side towards A, so post plant on B, you want to be good at that. And I think Sova is pretty good at revealing things on B, because of how open the site is. I mean, there are quite a few twists and turns, and not like ratty corners you can kind of sit in to hide from darts, so it's not too great, but it is doable. That's why the drone is also quite good on this site as well, because you can kind of drone absolutely everything you need to drone, like basically instantly. Like every corner is done apart from that corner, and you can see that corner instantly anyway. So you just have to clear that when you're out of the drone. If long as this is like not smoked, or like it's maybe smoked when you first start droning, when you finish droning it's not smoked. That's like the first thing you'll check, and then the rest is already droned. So generally, I think Sova is pretty good on this map with the way you're going to play it. It makes a lot of sense with all that kind of stuff. He has some like I have like a cross map dart as well. You can do like this. And this dart is also very useful because it's like supporting B site while I'm definitely going to be playing A. So these types of darts can really help as well to like elevate the playbook of Sova. I think that overall, he's a very, very strong agent on this map. I think A site is very post-plant orientated as well. So having like your ult, having a scan, having the shocks as well. I haven't got a shock lineup yet on this site, but I will have lineups for like every single conceivable position probably for my shocks on this site from this position or around this position. But yeah, I think Sova makes sense for this map because I feel like he fits into all the themes of this map. But I do have a pretty interesting notable agent next. Yeah, so I'm putting Fade here because I don't really mean Fade as a replacement to Sova or like the recon role. I actually think this map could be one of the first maps we see that genuinely have a competitive double recon composition. And I think that it makes a lot of sense because recon could be very, very strong with the post plan here. And I think generally as well with B being a very open site, or at least being like open top site, it makes sense for Sova to be played on there. But it also makes sense to have things like Prowlers for all the other corners and things like that as well as the kind of like the mid section as well. It makes sense to have Prowlers for like this kind of section, even though it is like only one part of the map. Like it can be like, depending on how hard it's going to be to take this part of the map, it might be quite beneficial to have a Fade as well as a Sova. To be able to kind of reveal things, and then you also have the Prowlers still and that kind of stuff. He's also very good for post-plant stuff as well. And obviously the Haunt is great for just revealing things in the site. Having this ult as well might be one of the most viable ways for taking a site in general as well. So it does make sense to kind of run Fade in that sense. The reason why I've got Sova kind of like first on this, and that's why like he's kind of like put over Fade in my opinion, is because Cypher is going to be played. And I think it's very good to have some Sentinel utility destruction, which Sova can provide and Fade can't. So I would probably assume Sova to be played more if Cypher is played more. If Vice is played more, I expect Fade to be played more. And there's a decent chance that we might end up seeing both Fade and Sova on the same composition, or at least not as the majority comp, but as a viable comp that people will play. I don't have too much on my Fade playbook, so I can't really show like anything crazy. She's going to be one of the ones I do next, so I haven't got anything crazy, but I do know that she's very good on this map for the very basic reasons that Sova is very good on this map, as well as her differences from Sova. Okay, so next we've got a controller, which is Omen, and I think Omen is probably going to be the jack of all trades type controller for this site. I mean, he kind of is anyway, but he for this map specifically, I think he is kind of like the one that can kind of do it all compared to the rest of the controllers. I think we might see Clove in ranked a lot, which is kind of makes sense, obviously. And we probably will see Viper a tiny bit in Pro, but I'm not sure how much she's actually going to be seen in Pro. Because I'm not sure what the verdict is with how good she is. There's going to be points where she's good, I think, but I think that she might take a bit too much out of the rest of the composition to run her. So we'll have to see if teams prefer Viper over other compositions. We'll have to see. So, go back to Omen. I think Omen does have some really good smokes you can do. I think you've probably seen this a billion times. But yeah, plenty of things you can do on Omen that make sense to him. This smoke, I think, is probably the best smoke as well. This one's mainly good for post-plant because it's really hard for them to... Like, this crossfire, like, sort of set up for the defense on post... For the attack on post-plant seems really, really difficult to get through. I think this is probably the best smoke for taking a site, but it could also be this smoke. I wouldn't recommend one all the way back there. I think this one is a bit too deep. This one is probably viable. I think this one is viable, but other than that, I'm not sure I would really do any other smoke than this. But yeah, you can also do a smoke like this as well instead of the smoke over here, if you are worried about any short players as well. And I think that, yeah, I think Omen is pretty good. TP scaling and that kind of stuff. You can smoke mid as well. If you want to go and do an A short. It's going to split. And on B, I think this is where it gets interesting. On B, you do have like these TP options here, as long as you're not going to insta-die from here. So maybe you want to do something like a one-way over here. I think actually, I'm not sure if they can probably still see the corner, right? Oh, actually, they actually can't. So you can do this one-way and TP here. And then you've got like a kind of like a one-way going on to anyone in that corner. So it seems like a pretty viable strategy. You can also TP into it as well. A lot of people probably think you actually TP into this smoke rather than to this corner. So it might be a very good smoke to place and mix up where you're going. And I think so Omen kind of has that going on like throughout the map, right? You can also do TPs like this. And if you've got this smoked as well, if I actually smoke it correctly and smoke both at the same time, then you can also TP into heaven as well. Obviously, this is kind of risky. You want to do this when it makes sense to take those risks. But yeah, these are options that you have on Omen. I think Omen has some great options overall. I also think as well, there are going to be times on attack where you lose the bomb. in the majority of your team and you're going to be like maybe lurking or something, or you're going to be holding somewhere. I think that can actually happen quite a lot. And I think that on this map especially, it might be very difficult to retrieve the bomb in those circumstances because of how one-dimensional all the chokes are, right? There's like 3 or 4 chokes on the map. And I think all these chokes are kind of difficult to get the bomb back once you've been kind of, once you've lost the space on attack. It's probably going to be difficult. So I think having something like the utility of Omen ult, they've retrieved the bomb. I don't expect it obviously to happen very often, but I think it's something notable about this map. That is, if the defense do get multi-frags, I think it's super hard for the remaining attackers to probably get a win on this map. I just want to talk a bit about defense as well. You do have some decent paranoia lines and like decent smokes on defense. I think your paranoia lines on attack like aren't great. Like you do have one from like here to here, which is pretty good on B. But other than that, there's like not anything too notable on like A. For instance, like there's this, but it's not that great. Like you can do things for A, like post plant stuff, sure, but I think, and also I guess you could do something like this too, to be fair. Like this is actually pretty good too. But you do miss some like potential corners that they could sit in, so maybe not. It's a bit difficult, I think, for him to like fully fit his paranoias into places on attack. But I think on defense, they're pretty good. May even allow A to be retakeable if you do have paranoia, and to kind of scale up fast. So like you can like paranoia the main where they're spamming from, and then you can scale up a lot faster with like TPs a bit more a bit less accounted for when you're like TPing forward and they're deafened. So maybe that type of mobility plus that deafening might help kind of retake a site, because you do need to root them out usually on main, so they don't just like permanently spam you basically. But yeah, I also think as well in the controller role, another notable one that I'm not going to really talk about is Astra, just because when you have the ult up, they can't post-plant A very easily. So maybe that could be an option as well. Obviously, there's also Sage, which could also be pretty notable. Obviously not controller, but it could be a Sentinel that you could play on this map, because there are some decent Sage walls. And there are also, you can also like block off the bomb. The problem is with Sage wall is that you'd have to block off the bomb around the wall. So if they plant here, for instance, you would have to put the wall like this. So it could be not great for Sage. I think it's more viable for Astra, despite it being an ult. But yeah, we'll just have to see how it kind of pans out. Now we'll quickly talk about the duelists. Okay, so I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to talk about 3 agents, 3 duelists, instead of this being just the 5th one. And we've got Phoenix first. And the reason why I talk about Phoenix is because he's kind of like a jack of all trades. And this map kind of plays into that quite a lot, because of how different all of the map is to each other, to itself, I guess. Where you have like B site's pretty different to A site in the way that it's kind of laid out. Very open type site with some twists in the middle of it. And this one is kind of like there's twists and turns on the right of it, maybe a tiny bit insight. But generally it's quite open and spammable. This one's also quite open. This one's open and spammable, I guess. But generally I think the map is it requires some versatility in a lot of places. And I think Phoenix can provide that versatility. Things like the wall can block off like these massive sight lines that, like Omen, for instance, would have to put his smoke here. You can kind of do this to kind of help your team get out and that kind of stuff. You can even flash through the wall if it makes sense as well. That kind of stuff. Your ult seems to be very good in post-plant regardless of side. So both sides, you're pretty strong on post-plant with your ult. The flashes are still good despite them being a bit slower this patch. And the volley is obviously good as well, even in post-plant situations if you want to use it like that too. So I think overall, Phoenix makes a lot of sense to play just because of how versatile he is. Okay, so next we have ISO, and I think ISO tends to be quite good in these sort of situations where you kind of really want a Sentinel to get played. And so by playing ISO, you kind of do a good job of dealing with the Sentinel. You have the suppress on this, and I think that's the reason why the suppress was actually added to this in the first place, to kind of make his identity more solid against beating Sentinels, because he generally has a good ability versus most Sentinels. Regardless of like what Sentinel he's actually playing against, right? He has a silence on this and a fragile, so he can so it's all about making that Sentinel's life a living hell by silencing them, shutting down their utility, and then making them fragile on the site so they're very easy to kill, or easier to kill. You have this as well, this wall. This wall means that you can't get spammed as easy, right? If you right click it goes slower. If you can't get spammed as easy, right? You can block off the bullets. Then you have double tap as well. This is mainly aimed, I think, more so at, while also getting scanned. It can also be very much aimed at things like Chamber, like agents like Chamber that want to one-tap you with their Headhunter or kill you with their Tour de Force. It makes a lot of sense for him to have some abilities like this, right? And it's the same with the ult as well. The ult is also very good at dealing with the It's like the 1-1-3, right? If you have a strong side on A, you have a 1 in mid, and you have a 1 on B side. He's very good at dealing with that 1 because he can just ult them, and then the teammate can go get the kill even if he loses. Like it, and they get the site, right? So to me, ISO makes a ton of sense on this map just because of how it's going to get played and the prominence of either Vice or Chamber or Cypher. I think Cypher, and I think Chamber is also going to get played on solo queue. So I think it makes a lot of sense for ISO to be played on this map. I think he fits in very, very well with how it's going to be played, and I think it will take some time for people to understand that they want to play ISO on this map, but I do think that he's a very, very good choice. So the last agent I want to talk about is Yoru, and I think Yoru does have a glaring problem on this map, and that is the defense setup you kind of have isn't going to be very good because of how awkward it is to kind of get the TPs put across with like this type of stuff, and there's no good way to do it in the midsection. So I think it's very difficult for Yoru to properly set up on defense. So that's going to be the main thing that maybe keeps him from being played. But I think on attack, he's very good at bypassing defense setups with his TP. He also has good flashes as well for taking that space. And then he also has, he has his ult. And his ult is pretty good, obviously, for the same reason. Kind of getting past the setups and telling your teammates where they are, where the setups are, where the enemies are, all that kind of stuff. He's very good in those sort of situations. One of the things also I think are very notable about him is that he has a very similar option to Cypher in that the thing that he can place isn't interactable by the enemy. So you can place that, and then you've always got a world ping to spam. So there's a chance he gets played because of that, but the problem is that you kind of have to deal with the rest of the agent around this. And Yoru just isn't a very good post-plant agent normally. So you would have to play super different to how Yoru is normally played to get the value out of him, to actually play like this. So I reckon it's going to be reserved just for Cypher, but this is definitely an option Yoru would have on this map. I guess that's it for the video. I'd love to know what you guys think about the notable agents on CORRODE, whether you have different picks than me, why my picks suck, etc. I'd love to know what you guys think. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next one.